Good morning. Good afternoon. Because for singing, they need you bend it. A very warm good morning to all the esteemed intellectuals, honored guests, distinguished professors, enthusiastic students, and everyone gathered here. I'm Priyanka Burman, Senior MSc, Department of Food Science and Nutrition.
And I, Ashika, Junior MSc, Department of Food Science and Nutrition. And we together welcome each one of you to the inaugural program of Science Week 2023.
Science Week serves as a platform for postgraduate scholars to showcase their research endeavors, share discoveries, and present the outcomes of their dedicated theses and dissertation projects. Initiated in 2014 by the Directorate of Postgraduate Studies, this symposium has evolved into an annual event categorized by its strong scientific ethos.
Garnering significant acclaim, it has earned a prominent position within Indian agricultural universities, metamorphosing into a respected science festival distinguished by its particular agenda and rigorous evaluation mechanism.
It is a mark of our undying tradition to invoke the Almighty at the beginning of an important event. Now, I welcome Sahana M. and Sindhu H., Department of Food Science and Nutrition, to pray for us.
ಶರಣು ನಿನಗೆ ಶರಣು ವಿನಾಯಕ ಶರಣು ನಿನಗೆ ಶರಣು ವಿನಾಯಕ ವಿನಾಯಕ ವಿದ್ಯಾನಾಯಕ ದೇವ ವಿನಾಯಕ ವಿದ್ಯಾನಾಯಕ ದೇವ ಶರಣು ನಿನಗೆ ಶರಣು ವಿನಾಯಕ ಶರಣು ನಿನಗೆ ಶರಣು ಪಾಶಾಂಕುಶಧರ ಮೂಷಿಕವಾಹನ ಸಂಕೋಲಂಕೃತನೇ ಗಜಾನನ ಪಾಶಾಂಕುಶಧರ ಮೂಷಿಕವಾಹನ ಸಂಕೋಲಂಕೃತನೇ ಗಜಾನನ ಆದಿಪೂಷಿತ ವೇದವಂದಿತ ನೀನು ಆದಿಪೂಷಿತ ನೀನು ವೇದವಂದಿತ ನೀನು ಮೋದಕ ಪ್ರಿಯ ನೀನು ಗಣಾಧಿಪ ಶರಣು ನಿನಗೆ ಶರಣು ವಿನಾಯಕ ಶರಣು ನಿನಗೆ ಶರಣು ವಿನಾಯಕ ವಿನಾಯಕ ವಿದ್ಯಾನಾಯಕ ದೇವ ವಿನಾಯಕ ವಿದ್ಯಾನಾಯಕ ದೇವ ಶರಣು ನಿನಗೆ ಶರಣು ವಿನಾಯಕ ಶರಣು ನಿನಗೆ ಶರಣು. Thank you. We all feel blessed indeed.
Now, I would like to request Dr. H.C. Prakasha, Dean Postgraduate Studies, University of Agricultural Sciences, Bangalore, to welcome the gathering.
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. Good morning, everybody. On the dais, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. S.V. Suresh sir, our today's chief guest, Professor L.S. Sasidhar sir, Director of NCBS, Director of Education, Dr. K.C. Nanasamy sir, Registrar Basvegoda sir, Dean Agri, Dr. N.V. Prakash sir, and honorable board members, Dr. Prabhakar Shetty sir, and H.L. Harish sir, and all the officers of the dais, and postgraduate students and teachers. It's my pleasure and honor to welcome you all here for postgraduate Science Week 2023, being conducted by Directorate of Postgraduate Studies at GKVK Bangalore from 21st to 24th August 23. In order to inaugurate the Science Week 2023, we have with us an eminent scientist and distinguished professor, Dr. L.S. Sasidhar, Director of National Center for Biological Sciences, Bangalore. It's an opportunity for all of us to have such a great scientist among us today. We appreciate you, sir, for taking out your valuable time, being with us today, despite of your busy schedule. So, on behalf of the Directorate of Postgraduate Studies, University of Agricultural Sciences, Bangalore, myself extend you warm welcome to this function, sir. Our beloved Vice Chancellor, Dr. S.V. Suresh sir, a vibrant administrator. Under his administration, we are witnessing many developmental activities and practical-driven programs which become a foundation for excelling in the field of teaching, research, and extension programs. He is encouraging the private-public partnership mode of research activities, which ultimately benefit our students in getting the employment and also becoming an employer. Like this, many programs are being initiated from each department so that the faculty and students are focused with their research work and the technologies. So on this occasion, on behalf of Directorate of Postgraduate Studies, all the teachers, all the MSc and PhD students, I welcome you, sir, to this function. I also extend warm welcome to our beloved Director of Education, University of Agricultural Sciences, Bangalore, Dr. K.C. Nayanswamy sir, an expert in the academic rules and regulations. He's a backbone for introducing the digitization in the examinations in the university and dedicated officer. Welcome, sir, to this function. And also welcome Registrar Dr. Basavegoda, an eminent chief scientist in the university. During his tenure at PS Bangalore, he has given many technologies for the farmers. We welcome you, sir, this function. And Dean Agri and DSW, Dr. M.V. Prakash sir, known as Silicon Man among the Soil Science fraternity, served as a president of International Society of Silicon in Agriculture, awarded as a fellow of Indian Society of Soil Science, and also now serving as a member of NAIBA. So on this occasion, on behalf of Director of Postgraduate, welcome you, sir, to this function. I also welcome our honorable board members, Dr. Prabhakar Shetty sir, to this PG Science Week 2023, sir. I also welcome Dr. H.L. Harish sir to this PG Science Week 2023. I also welcome Director of Extension, Dr. Madhu Prasad, Librarian Papegoda, Administrative Officer Pratibha Madam, I also welcome all the experts who have come all over the other universities to this program. Welcome you, sir, all the experts. And also, I welcome all the university heads, professor and heads, professors, teachers, and all the masters and doctoral students, UG students, and staff of all these Bangalore and US Bangalore. And last, I also extend my scientific officer, Dr. Banu Prakash, and my staff, and all the teachers, again, students to this function. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The overarching objective of this event is to ignite the passion within students, fostering excellence in research, spanning both foundational and applicable dimensions, while also nurturing adaptness in effective communication. This endeavor aims to facilitate the seamless transfer of agricultural scientific knowledge.
In the course of Science Week 2023, a captivating series of oral presentations will be delivered by the departing PhD scholars, showcasing their diligent research undertakings. This year's assembly is further enriched by the active engagement of of over 500 postgraduate students, underscoring the robust participation in the event.
Now, I request Dr. K.C. Narayan Swami, Director of Education, University of Agricultural Sciences, Bangalore, to brief us about the Science Week.
Thank you. Good morning to each one of you. Respected chief guest of today's function, Dr. L.S. Shashidhar sir, Director NCBS Bangalore and renowned scientist, international scientist, Honorable Vice Chancellor Dr. S.V. Suresh sir, my beloved Registrar Dr. Baswegowda, beloved Deans Dr. Prakash and Dr. Prakash, Honorable members, Board of Management US Bangalore, Dr. T.K. Prabhakar Shetty sir, Dr. H.L. Hari sir, eminent expert members from different institutions, professors, heads of the departments, university heads, faculty members, students, and also invitees. I am happy to, share. And also, share the experience of previous science weeks which were held from the year 2014-15. So, in fact, the first science week was organized during the year 2014 with the the consistent efforts of Professor K.N. Ganeshaya and then DPGS of EAS Bangalore with the association of Dr. V.V. Belwadi and Dr. K. Chandrasekhar and other eminent the professors and faculty members of EAS Bangalore. So in the year 2014, the main objective behind organizing the Science Week as a science festival of EAS Bangalore are to ignite the scientific passion among the PG students of EAS Bangalore so that they can face any challenges in the science and technology of the the globe, and also for fostering excellence in research, both fundamental and applied research. Then to nourish the adaptness in the effective communication skills, and also to enhance their cross-learning programs. They can know each other, they can know what is happening in the other departments. For example, the crop physiology students, they can know what is happening in this social sciences department, and also vice versa. These are the main objectives behind the organization of Science Week. In fact, the Science Week or the Science Festival is being organized with three distinct sessions, such as Excitement Science, Science for Society, and Opportunities in Scientific agriculture. These are the main thematic areas in the Science Week, so which are being practiced from past 1 decade, we can say. Then the themes of the Science Week are classified as a 5 distinct or the different themes. So for the purpose of the presentation as well as the evaluation and also judging the best posters under each category, the first one is the crop production, which includes agronomy, science, agriculture, microbiology, horticulture, forest and environmental science, and agrometeorology. This is the first group. Then second group is the crop improvement, genetics and plant breeding, crop physiology, plant biochemistry, plant biotechnology, seed science and technology, and also bioinformatics. The third group is the crop protection, which includes plant pathology, agriculture entomology, apiculture, and sericulture. Then the fourth one is social sciences, that is agriculture economics, agriculture extension, marketing, agribusiness management, and also statistics, agricultural statistics. Then the fifth and final group is other, allied sciences like agriculture engineering and agriculture engineering, food science, and nutrition. So these are the 5 distinct areas. During the Science Week, in fact, the Science Week is held for about 4 days. In fact, this is the 10th Science Week, which is being organized from 21st August to 24th August for 4 days. In fact, expert members, nearly 25 to 30 experts members will be participating in this Science Week, and nearly 320 postgraduate students, that is MSc students, from 26 disciplines will be presenting their research through poster presentations. Similarly, 96 doctoral degree students from 17 disciplines, they will be presenting their research findings through oral presentations, which will be held in different the concurrent sessions. So here, while presenting the thematic, these posters as well as the oral research findings through research findings. So here the expert members, they evaluate the contents of the the posters or the oral presentation, and also the way in which they communicate, and also the way in which they communicate and express the scientific the results to the expert members and also the visitors. So in fact, here I would like to highlight. So in fact, the first and the foremost, so the Science Week was held on 25th to 28th May 2006, which was inaugurated by the international renowned scientist Professor U.R. Rao, former secretary of ISRO. Then the second one was organized between 23rd to 26th, again in the May of 2017. So which was inaugurated by the then director of IISc, Professor P. Balram. So that is on 23rd of 2017. Then Dr. S. Ayyappan, former DG ICR and Secretary DARE, inaugurated the third, the Science Week on 28th May 2018. While the fourth one was inaugurated by Professor S.M. Sivprasad, Director, Academy of Higher Education, Dharwad on 21st May 2019, while Dr. R.C. Agarwal, DDG, so this, while Dr. R.C. Agarwal, DDG Education and the National Director, NAHP, inaugurated the fifth Science Week on 25th August 2009. Then due to COVID pandemic during the 2010, the Science Week, we did not stop at the, even during the, the COVID period, but we conducted very effectively the Science Week through, online mode with the, participation of several expert members from even abroad. So then the Science Week during 2021 was inaugurated on 27th by Dr. Subra Hegde, Director Biotechnology Risk Analysis Program, FIS USDA Riverside, Riversdale, USA. Then the previous Science Week, that is the 9th Science Week, was inaugurated by Padma Shri awardee Professor K. Vijayaraghavan, FRS, former Secretary, DBT, and former Principal Scientific Advisor to Government of India, and Founder Director of NCBS. So he emphasized the importance of science, the scientific, the temperament in day-to-day activities. In fact, sir, during this, that is the 10th Science Week, so as I told, so there will be nearly 320 PG presentations, 96 postgraduate, doctoral degree presentations. Then on 23rd, entire 23rd is earmarked for the presentation of startup ideas by the students. So in fact, here 30 students, so both UG 19 undergraduate students and 11 PG students, they will be presenting their startup ideas. In fact, during the occasion, I would like to mention the achievement of our UG students in the past 2 months here. So in fact, 4 students of UAS Bangalore, in fact, they have brought laurels to UAS Bangalore by, the presenting and demonstrating the startup idea on solar-based micro irrigation system. This was, it was demonstrated in Dundee University, United Kingdom. So during July. This was purely funded by the Department of Higher Education and Government of Karnataka. In fact, they have won the first prize. This team was led by Dr. Kumar Gowda, Assistant Professor of College of Agriculture Engineering. 4 students, I would like to mention their names. Miss Risha Subbaya, Miss Chinmayi Kalita from College of Agriculture, GKVK. Both of them are 3rd year basic degree students. and Miss Rakshita and Mr. Vignesh from College of Agriculture, College of Sericulture, Chintamani. They are also third year BSc Agri students. In fact, so we would like to, so thank them for their, the ideas. So with this, in fact, this is about the Science Week. Dear friends, I request all the PG students and also the faculty members to actively participate in the Science Week and learn the scientific temperament. Let us strive together for the betterment of the farming community. Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. A ray of light is a ray of hope. Let's all leave the darkness and step towards the bright path. May I now request all the dignitaries to inaugurate the program by lighting the lamp.
All for inaugurating the program. May I now request all the dignitaries to release the compendium, which includes Master's Posters Compendium, Doctoral Oral Abstracts Compendium, and Program Schedule of 2023.
Thank you, everyone. Professor M.S. Sashidhara, better known as Sashi among all his students, colleagues, and in government circles, did his undergraduate and postgraduate studies in genetics and plant breeding at the University of Agricultural Sciences, Harvard, India, and studied regulations of chlorophyll biosynthesis for his PhD at the University of Cambridge, UK. He is known for his studies on how various organs are positioned precise locations in our body and the precise control mechanism by which our organs grow to specific size. For the past 7 years, he is working very closely with clinicians on ways to improve outcomes of cancer treatment. Professor Shashi is one of the founding academic members of the Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research, Pune, and Ashoka University, contributing to their growth. In addition, he has contributed to establish the Indian Cancer Genome Atlas, a national consortium to promote collaborative cancer research, and the Pune Knowledge Cluster to promote multidisciplinary collaborative work.
Professor Shashi is an elected fellow science academist, a S.S. Bhatnagar Prize awardee, was a J.C. Bose National Fellow, and an elected member of European Molecular Biology Organization, was the third Indian to achieve this recognition. Professor Shashi has served in the past as Vice President of Indian National Science Academy and the Secretary General of International Union of Biological Sciences. He served as President of IUBS.
Professor Shashidhara has also been very involved in the promotion of science and science education. He has facilitated training of more than 10,000 school and undergraduate teachers in India on inquiry-based teaching and learning.
I now request the chief guest of today's program, Professor Yatish Shashidhara, Director, National Sciences for Biological Sciences, Bangalore, to give the inaugural speech.
Thank you very much. It's an honor and privilege to be here today, along with the Honorable Vice Chancellor of US Bangalore, GKVK campus, and all the senior functionaries of the university, professors, teachers, and my dear students. It's a fantastic event. In fact, commemorate the beginning and end of a master's program. With the students who are coming in, they will get some kind of orientation about what is research, how research integrated teaching happens in an agriculture university such as US Bangalore. And also at the same time, showcasing what students have achieved, both on postgraduate and PhD students, in a peer review format. In addition to the students getting evaluated with the help of examiners, both external and internal teachers and professors, it's also equally important that you showcase your work to your own batchmates and get some good comments. Because as you just heard, a lot of innovative ideas come from young people. And many of you have had startup ideas. Some of you have already won some laurels in both education, research, and innovation. So given this, the peer review is the most important aspect of any learning process. And Science Week provides that opportunity in any other format. Poster presentation, your own students should participate and go to each other's posters. In fact, science itself progresses through a peer review process. I'm coming to that in a minute. So today, I thought I'll just briefly, because many of you have already completed 1 year of masters or 2 years of masters or a few years of PhD program, it sort of outline the evolution of the research as a profession, as a way of learning, as a way of thinking, right? And what are the very different ethical and integrity aspect of our profession is something you need to remember. Science progresses only when knowledge is shared, knowledge is verified, knowledge is examined, knowledge is tested again and again. But that most important aspect is adhering to certain ethical norms, and which evolves with time. Ethical norms are also not the same all the time. They evolve. Morality is something which is absolute, whereas ethics is something evolved with the better understanding of our nature, our own interaction amongst ourselves as a society, and the society and natural world interaction. And integrity is the most important aspect in all of these things, how well you adhere to the ethical norms. Just to give you an outline, I think it's not in the, you are running, okay, fine, thanks. So you're all pursuing science, right? And you may always wonder, what is science? Whenever you try to tell your students, young students or even own siblings at home, how do you explain what is science, right? Science is something which you will perceive beyond your own perception, sensory perception. We have all these 5 sensory organs which you are all familiar with, through which we try to understand ourselves and our interaction with the natural world. We also understand our surroundings, right? We try to understand ourselves. What we call self-understanding comes when we try to perceive things. But perception cannot be the truth. Even almost in all philosophical writings, both Eastern and Western philosophical writings, it was very clearly written again and again, although people didn't have a way to find a real answer, that what we see may not be true, right? And if that's the case, then what is truth? How do you identify what is truth? If everybody on the earth will say exactly the same thing, perceive exactly the same thing, then how can you find out what is true, right? So people until 20th, beginning of, not 20th century, beginning of 16th, 17th century, didn't know how to perceive things beyond our own perception, right? Because if wherever you go, whichever the part of the world go, whether people of different culture, different origins, if they say exactly the same thing, then how do you know what is real truth? This is the best example. If Earth, moving around the sun versus sun are moving around us, right? How do you perceive what is the truth in this context? And with the help of scientific methodology, involving, of course, technology like telescopes and microscopes, people started discovering the real natural world beyond our own perception, right? And so in a way, science not always requires technology. A lot of this can be done only with the help of what's called research and methodology, which involves trying to understand the world beyond our own perception with the help of logic too. Next slide, please. So this is already mentioned, modern science is all about both using the qualitative and quantitative methods, and a university like agriculture sciences, where you have both social science and natural sciences, you need to involve both qualitative and quantitative methods, particularly those who do agriculture extension, right? And agriculture marketing. You also know that a lot of what we do is also requires some qualitative understanding of our world. The farmer's world is not always quantitative, right? And in fact, the qualitative methods of research is very important in agriculture. As you all know, agriculture is not simply a profession, like, maybe an engineering graduate or any other professional graduates in BCom, or, there you have certain artificial way of trying to understand certain societal functions and try to improve it, right? Of course, for better lives and better livelihood. But agriculture is something beyond all of these things, because it's a way of living which evolved over the last 10 to 12,000 years, and all of this modern society has its origin because of agriculture, and because of which qualitative methods of research is as important as quantitative methods. Next slide. Now, as you all know, in our own life, scientific methods are extremely important. Without scientific methods, we'll not be able to understand in the complex modern world. Your own social living, your own social context is very difficult to understand given the complexity. The complexity arises for two reasons. One is simply complexity it simply arises because of multiple interactions. And more the number of interactive nodes, more is the complexity. For example, our brain is one of the most complex organs in our body, simply because it's made up of 5 billion neurons and close to about 15 to 20 billion connections, between neurons are made. And multiple different, input output comes out of this brain, and a lot of input is also remembered, and that adds to the complexity, right? So that's one of the reasons. Each one is different, although structurally we have similar brain. Each one of us have a different so-called self, right? And that's because of this very complex interactions between neurons in our brain. So with 1.5 billion people in India and 7 billion people on Earth, and more people can connect to each other, obviously the world is more complex, right? Irrespective of what you want to understand, whether you want to understand physical world, biological world, or to understand the human world, it's very, very complex. It's simply because of the modern way of living. And the only way to understand this, only way to solve your problems of profession, your problem of personal life, is using the scientific methods. So when people talk about scientific temperament, that's one of the reasons that if you inculcate scientific methodology in your living, then you will be able to, have a more harmonious and peaceful as well as comfortable living, on Earth in today's world, right? And you can ask both proximal questions and the ultimate questions we ask. For example, as an agriculture scientist, if you want to try to improve the farmers, output, right, income, how do you achieve this? You may say, okay, I'll use these kind of input to the soil or these kind of input to the plant and trees and so forth. It may have some proximal benefit to the farmers. What about the long-term benefit? Is it sustainable? Will it affect the characteristics of the soil? Will it make it less, productive after 5 to 10 years, right? Without understanding all of this, if you try to improve, the farmer's output using whatever the innovative method you thought of, then you're only providing a proximal, sort of solution to their problems, right? It is almost like giving a quick loan to them. Right? Loan always comes with a burden, that interest, right? You may not charge the interest. You think you are providing a free interest-free loan to them by telling them you use this methodology, you will get a little bit more outcome and you'll have more output and you'll get more income. But 5 years later, they actually may go down, right? That's the interest they'll have to pay, the burden of the loan that you're giving. So that's why you need to provide what's called ultimate solutions. There's absolutely nothing like an absolute ultimate solution. Is simply because of the changing natural world and also the kind of interaction that we have with the soil and the environment around us through agricultural practices, right? The air quality changes, the soil quality changes, water quality changes, and irrespective of how much sustainable and organic agriculture practice we do, is simply there will be a change, right? And that's where learning evolution will help you. As you know, today's world with 21% of oxygen in the atmosphere, it is entirely the product of the life evolved, a form of life which evolved after about 1 billion years of the life which first originated on Earth. The life originated on Earth around 3.45 billion years ago, which are mostly always anaerobic. And about 1 billion years later, the photosynthetic bacteria evolved and which started releasing oxygen to the atmosphere. Within a few 100 million years, the oxygen reached the current, saturated limit of 21 to 23% of oxygen in the atmosphere. This is changed simply because of the interaction between the natural world and the physical world. So irrespective of how we promote agriculture amongst us, there would be some changes to the natural world, and you need to keep that in mind. And that understanding comes when you study what's called ecology and evolution, right? And that, again, I'm told is one of the hottest topics here. And all of you are, learn these topics with some of the very good ecology and environmental and evolutionary biologists on campus. And when you ask kind of question that you need to ask, you need to be very rational. You cannot have some kind of an emotional connection to the problem. If you have an emotional connection to the problem, you will not find correct solution. The rationality comes 2 reasons. One is applying scientific methods, and be integral, adhering to the integrity of the scientific methods that you need to follow. And in addition, you need to make sure that you are not emotionally connected. That means you should not be biased. How to be unbiased is not emotionally connected. Of course, many times the problems of the farmers, problems of any world, allied professions in agriculture, because of the way it affects their lives, you may feel very concerned. That's why you want to get into that research. It's true, it's important to be emotionally connected, be empathetic about that. That's how you will get into that research so that you can solve the problems. But while you are solving the problem, you have to be very, very careful to be very, very unbiased. And to be unbiased, that comes when you develop the rationality or rational approach in your research. And that's one of the most important aspects. Next slide, please. And research methodology I'll come to that in a minute, in a little bit more detail. And it has its own origin, because not always what is called modern research was practiced. It was more recent in a way. It's only about 200 to 300-year old, concept which is sort of evolved and matured and stabilized. Before that, it was always trial and error. People used to know something and then disseminate their knowledge in a particular way. And dissemination knowledge used to be a very slow process with the help of travelers, right? For example, Indian number system, Indian astronomy was all sort of disseminated to the rest of the world over 300 to 400 years of time scale. And that's the time it took for people to move from one place to another place and disseminate the knowledge. Because it was through word of mouth, using a relay system, right? Like Chinese whisper, the knowledge also gets distorted. So there was really no clear way of disseminating the knowledge. One, the script evolved and people started writing, at least if not on the printing paper, on a piece of dried leaf, right? That knowledge at least became somewhat more stable because there was less distortion to the knowledge during dissemination. But when the Gutenberg revolution happened around end of the 15th century or beginning of the 16th century, where the printing press that Gutenberg developed in Germany enabled people to communicate not just to one or two people, to hundreds of people, the knowledge by printing large number of copies of the books, right? And that's one of the reasons what happened after the 16th century onwards is well documented. Even before the 16th century, in the European history, they call it as a dark period, particularly prior to the Renaissance of Europe. It's called dark period because nothing was written down and properly understood at that time. Before that, of course, is archaeological time. Whatever we know is very patchy, through some edicts or some stone writing in temples in India or in such kind of buildings elsewhere in the world. But what we know about society, how things have developed, things have evolved, both our social world and our understanding of the natural world through science is well documented beginning of the 16th century because of the Gutenberg revolution, right? And here, one additional thing that could communicate is one of the important things for all of you to understand when you communicate your research is communication using images, right? You can write hundreds of pages of an article, but if you can communicate something in 10 images, it's much more effective, right? And people, for example, could see an interesting plant or interesting animals in one part of the world. How do they communicate to another part of the world what it is? An image was much more effective than description, right? And now, of course, in the 21st century, we have even better way of communicating, both oral as well as through video communications. So in a way, two things happening. The communication is more effective and the communication is also real-time, instantaneous because of the modern way of communicating. And this helps, both dissemination of knowledge and verification and validation of the knowledge that I'm talking about in a minute. Next slide, please. So these are the standard methods of science or scientific experiment, but it could be a thought experiment, could be computational experiment, could be mathematical way of looking at the problem, or it could be real experiment in the laboratory or experiment in the field, because you are also many of you. So you start with asking a specific question, and that question will help you to design the experiment. And that question itself is built on a hypothesis, derived from an hypothesis built on the prior knowledge, right? And all of these things are very important. And if you go to the previous slide, earlier days too, people were following this, but not in a very strict adherence to these steps. What people will, for example, if someone says, this is knowledge I produced, like, I'm sure many of you heard Socrates' story, right? Or in Indian, philosophers also. If someone says something, you start asking questions. You keep on asking questions. You challenge the people who are saying, this is what they have observed. Is it true that what you have observed is true? And that's kind of questioning is a way of trying to, separate out what could be the noise, what could be the untruth in the observation or in the knowledge that is being disseminated, right? Is what is called a deductive approach. And with 16th century onwards, the better methods of scientific um, um, approaches using technology and more matured way of doing science. And finally, what we have, evolved is this, the set of steps in what's called research or scientific methodology, right? And then you define your objectives, you design and perform experiments, collect and analyze data. And in case experiments doesn't mean that it has to be really experiment, could be simply an observation. You go to a field and observe something, that's also an experiment. How do you observe is also very scientific. You not simply observe whatever comes to your mind and write it. You have to have some kind of an analytical way of observation. And then you check the data supports the rules of the hypothesis, or it sort of supports the hypothesis. And most important aspect of all of these things is being unbiased. And how do you be unbiased? One is, of course, use the technology, because a microscope and telescope may see things which you may not see. Second is, because your eyes are seeing through the telescope or microscope, you may again, bias the observation. Another way is using the video camera or photographic camera, so that what comes to in front of your image is something different than what you may observe and perceive when you yourself see through the microscope. And you can always show these images to 100 different people, and this, when they also perceive something similar to what you have perceived, what you have analyzed, what you have concluded, then you know your work is applicable across the globe. And that's the research methodology you need to use. Second is, of course, in the quantitative method, we use statistics. One of the most important evolution in research methodology in the beginning of 20th century, Galton, Arya Fisher, and all those people contributed to this. And without statistics, many times you cannot produce any unbiased results. Statistics is the best way of producing the unbiased results. And in statistics, you must have heard about p-value, right? P.05, 0.1001, and something which you say, this is the result, and p-value is 0.05. Basically, what it means is it is a 5% chance that your hypothesis, or sorry, your results is false, right? Or 5% is the chance that your null hypothesis is true. Now, in fact, what you validate in scientific methods is not your hypothesis. What you validate is the opposite of a hypothesis, called null hypothesis. All your experiments are designed to prove yourself wrong. Your experiments are not designed to prove yourself correct. So in science, in real science, if you're a real scientist, you will never say, I want to prove this. You always want to test, you want to validate, you want to verify. If you say you want to prove, you're already biased, right? So, you have to be ethically correct. You have to be, follow scientific integrity. The first step is you want to, other way you can say that even the highest level of scientific integrity is you want to prove yourself wrong. In fact, your null hypothesis is made, your p-values are derived to prove yourself wrong. If your p-values cannot prove yourself wrong, your design of experiment, which is supposed to confirm null hypothesis, is cannot confirm, then only your hypothesis becomes correct. So you prove your hypothesis by somehow trying to disprove yourself, right? As you can see here, the scientific methodology was to an extent is that it somewhat looks like a, sort of some opposite way of doing things, but that's the best way of doing things. That's the only way you can be very unbiased. Next slide, please. I already spoke about this, right? And basically how you use statistics and kind of stuff. Next slide, please. So scientific methods are used not only in so-called physics, chemistry, math, biology, or agriculture science support. They can be used in other fields also. Particularly, you are the students here. Many of you are in agriculture, marketing, agriculture, economics, and extension, so forth. For example, the recent Nobel Prize for economists was given for the kind of experiment they did using exactly the similar kind of experimental methods that I spoke about in proving certain way of providing the social benefit to the poor people. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. I already spoke about this. Now, the scientific methodology is is greatly intertwined along with its research ethics and scientific integrity. And these come because the only way you can produce real knowledge, useful knowledge, and consistent knowledge is only when you adhere to this kind of a methods. And also your observation, it may not be relevant all the time in all the contexts, but that should be properly explained. If what you observe here may not be true in other part of the world. Within, for example, in one part of the Bangalore, it's raining, and another part of Bangalore may not be raining. So your observation also has to be contextual, right? So in that context, it's very important to adhere to some of these methods, right? And I'll not get into the philosophical aspect of this, but what is important is you cannot do good science unless you ask questions, right? Asking questions is part of the scientific temperament. And the second is you need to take decision for yourself, and you should be held responsible for it. You should own your decision and be responsible for this. Then only you try to become more unbiased. You'll try to make sure that your work is useful for the benefit for anybody, in the world. It could be farmers or it could be anybody else, for which whose problem you are trying to solve through your research. Next slide, please. Now, this authority and authoritarian I'm talking about in the context of knowledge. Okay, so there is certain kinds of authority we all have as teachers, because we think we have understood this and we have practiced this for the last 20 years and then try to teach it. But in the classroom, asking specific questions against the knowledge, because you may be more innovative, you may suddenly see that in certain context, what we're saying, it may not be applicable, it may be wrong. So asking questions, sometimes you might be asking questions for clarification, sometimes you're challenging the what we are trying to teach is the best part of your learning process when you talk about scientific methodology. Next slide, please. I think we'll do this. I think it's not meant for this particular audience. I have given this talk elsewhere. I just cut and pasted some of the slides. Next slide, please. Next slide. So this I already mentioned, Popperian model. What I was talking about, so-called null hypothesis, and then our effort is to disprove our hypothesis and not to prove our hypothesis through a process of validation, is what is called Popperian model of doing scientific research, which basically evolved during the 20th century. Next slide, please. The next slide. We can keep skipping all these things. It's not so important. I've already explained all of these things. Okay, so some of the most important aspect of when it comes to practices, the philosophical aspect of scientific methods, when it comes to practices, as I told you, why you have to adhere to these scientific practices, because without adhering to scientific practices, whatever you learn, whatever you show, whatever you try to prove or disprove, all of them will be completely useless. After, somehow you may get a degree at the end of 2 years because people are not observed your biasness or unsubstantiated results, but that is of no use. There are two kinds of problem in scientific methods. One is unintentional, unintended. Another is intentional. Unintended problem can be solved by using unbiased way of designing the experiment, using the right statistics, making observation again and again, and trying to take the help of your colleagues or your co-students and see wherever you think you are biased, you can get that clarified. But the problem that we are facing in the modern world, all over the world, right, is the intentional, manipulation of data and kinds of other problems associated with this. And this is actually going to, may give short-term benefit to you because you may get good papers, some recognition, some name and fame, but eventually no one has benefited. Everybody is shamed after a few years whenever they have come out with some data which is not believable, which is spurious, or because of manipulation or whatever it is. Even Nobel laureates after 10, 15 years of their work have been, discovered that there has been some problem with their work, and people have, reprimanded them, and many of them have lost their jobs, and many of them have had many problems because of that. So science, because it's global, there are millions of people who are working on this. One or other person will try and see whether data is useful for them or whether data is valid or not. Because every time when you do some experiment, you build your hypothesis based on the prior knowledge. If the prior knowledge is not on the right foundation, the experiment will not work. If anybody tried to build a new hypothesis based on the work you publish elsewhere in the world, and they will try and find out eventually after some time that your results not correct, or there could be a fabrication in the data. So please adhere to the best scientific practices in your life. It will always be useful, right? Don't look for shortcuts and don't look for short-term gains. Next slide, please. Now, very quickly, whatever the way we do research, not only our way of doing research will help our normal day-to-day living, because you will have more scientific temperament in the society. You will try to solve your personal problem using scientific methods. It could be problems related to your finances, problems related to building your house, or your own farming and so forth, or your entrepreneurship. Most important aspect of entrepreneurship modern days is also have to use scientific methods, because modern days entrepreneurship is too complicated, and also it's based on the very complex administrative and financial world that we have built over time. Next slide, please. Beyond all of these things, it also helps to understand ourselves. Okay, the next slide, please. So, for example, the genetics, the plant on which almost our entire modern agriculture is built on, the classical genetics and plant breeding and quantitative genetics. And the next slide, please. And the theory of evolution, on which again agriculture is largely built on, right? And of course, all our understanding of the modern understanding of not only the rest of the natural world, and also us as human beings, including human evolution and human cognition, brain, mind, and so forth, have also given a better understanding of the society in general. Next slide, please. Of course, something which we have understood is there is single origin of life. In today's, every form of life has only one origin, and all of them have same chemistry of life. And that also has enabled us a lot of biotechnological related innovations, because the chemistry of life is the same, right? You can make insulin in bacteria, or you make all kinds of different types of enzymes in bacteria, and for industrial application or agriculture application or biofuel application and so forth. It is all enabled because of our better understanding of genetics and evolution and the molecular biology. Next slide, please. And it also has provided way of understanding why there are so many variations, why everybody is so different within a family or between families, and very different parts of the world, and although belong to the same species, and why there are differences between the species, between genera, and so forth, right? Variations is the very next slide, please, right? So this is the kind of variation that you see in the modern biological world. Next slide, please. And we know now that variation is something which happens simply because of the chemistry of life and nothing to do with any other forces. The second is the variation or diversity of life forms is most important aspect for our survival, right? If there are 100, it's basically what evolves is a population. I'm sure Ernst Mayer's work people have been taught here, right? What evolves is not individual. Individuals change, individual have variations, individual adapt to an environment, but finally what evolves is a population when you talk about speciation and so forth, right? And population level evolution, there are some individuals will not do well, some individuals do well, and that's because of the variation they carry. So if there is an infection spread, some people succumb to the infection, some will not, and that sort of changes the life forms, right? And over 3.7 billions of evolution, and that has enabled us to what we are today. The next slide, please. And this understanding in the modern world is also equally important because of extreme racism and other kind of discriminations which has evolved over time in the last 3,000 to 4,000 years of human history. Now is all getting dissolved is because we have better understanding of our the societal, the differences and the similarities, right? The reason and why people have evolved differently in different parts of the world. And that also has enabled us to be more conscious of human rights. And the next slide, many countries through their legal system is providing equal rights to almost every, not almost, to all individuals of the society, irrespective of their, color or, very different other differences in their biological world. Next slide, please. In the last 2 minutes, something for your tomorrow's world. We all belong to yesterday's and perhaps some of us to today's world, young teachers here. But the future is all yours and your world is different. How different it would be is always difficult to predict. Science also helps to predict better the future, but unfortunately, the kind of change that's happening, mostly because of human activity, the future is becoming less predictable and becoming more and more challenging for prediction. Nowadays, people are using supercomputers, artificial intelligence, all kinds of machine learning approaches to predict, for example, whether rainfall, the monsoon will be a normal or below normal or above normal in different parts of India, right? Just about 10 years ago, with a lot of research, we actually achieved better prediction for monsoon. In the last 10 years, again, almost all the models are going wrong because of the climate change and the associated problems. And because of this, the sustainable development programs are also getting derailed. What we thought that we should get into sustainable development in the last 15, 20 years, it's becoming less and less productive because the world is changing too fast. Okay, next slide, please. And so the future, when the kind of problem you're going to solve in future may not be present today or could be completely a different scale of the problem. So to solve tomorrow's problem, you cannot learn any specific skills now, right? For example, if you want to be an engineer, if you're an agriculture scientist or anyone, domain knowledge and specific skills maybe not that relevant to solve tomorrow's problem. You may need to generate new knowledge, you may need to develop new skills. So the way of learning, basically self-learning approaches and ability to apply knowledge to solve problems is what you need to learn, not necessarily very specific domain knowledge, of course, other than the very fundamental core knowledge, which will not change, right? For example, Mendelian genetics or Darwinian evolution or the chemistry of life, DNA-based life, all of those things you can learn as a core subject. But many things that you learn beyond all of these things, very specialized topic, those specialized topics may not be relevant in tomorrow's world. Next slide, please. The 21st century is another interesting is this globally connected village. Next slide, please. In fact, when we started, we are a small group of people in one part, right, but less connected to each other because of language disabilities. But today we are also, although we are separated out in many different populations in different nations, but we're connected because of certain common language that we use and common methods of communication, instantaneous communication that we have. Next slide, please. Which is very obvious during the COVID time, in real time we could share knowledge and so forth. So to solve tomorrow's problem, you should be globally connected, use the global knowledge, right? But your solution has to be local because the climate change impact is different parts of the world. There will be, floods or cloud burst or, drought, or, insect pests in one part or something else, human pathogens in another part. We don't know. All kinds of, implications are there in different parts of the world. So there is no one solution. But the methods and the knowledge that is required to solve these problems are global, right? And that's what you need to learn, adapt, and develop, and improvise, and innovate, but solve the local problem for which you need to be locally very rooted. You need to go and understand the problem in the local regions before you try to solve that problem, because there is no one solution for the whole world. Next slide, please. So I'll skip this. These are all the things you need to know that tomorrow's world will have more of these kind of changes. But sorry, one previous slide. Yeah, right. Both in India and elsewhere in the world, all the governments are trying to spread more basic science, more interdisciplinary multi-disciplinary approach. For example, National Research Foundation is just announced through Parliament bill is going to sort of help in doing all of these things. Next slide, please. And you as students have to develop these skills. This is more important than anything else because knowledge is always available on your mobile or internet, anywhere on the cloud. So you should be developing these skills rather than the domain knowledge, except the clarity in the fundamental knowledge. Okay. And I think I'll stop here. There are one or two more slides. It's okay, in the interest of time. Thank you very much, and I'm sure you will do very well in your life. And one last thing is, although these are students of postgraduates here, one good thing about Agriculture University compared to any other universities, Agriculture is the only place where undergraduate teaching is research integrated. All undergraduate students do projects in their second year, third year, fourth year undergraduate program, small projects. Of course, master's is entirely research integrated, and PhDs is all research. And this research integrated education is most important to learn all the skills that I mentioned here, which will help your future world. And all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving us a clear picture on research and beyond for a better future. May I now call upon Dr. Vasavegowda, Registrar, University of Agricultural Sciences, Bangalore, to address the gathering. Yes.
Respected dignitaries of this today's program, Dr. Shashidhar sir, our Honorable Vice Chancellor Dr. Suresh sir, all our officers and respected board members, Dr. Prabhakar Sethi sir, Dr. Rajesh sir, and all the officers, all the expert members, HODs, and beloved postgraduate students. Already sir has covered a lot of things actually. Now this is the one of the program most designed for the PG students. This is the opportunity for the student to expose their presentation skills, how they can present the programs and all actually. And also, as sir told actually, in any research program, there should be two this one. One, we should concentrate on the science, and second one is to find the solution for the local problem. Whatever the research program you are presenting and all actually, this you have to find out actually what is the scientific contribution to the society, and also what is the outcome of your results can be used further to solve the local problems. Second one is actually, this is opportunity for all the disciplines actually to work together and to know their merits and demerits also. Even for the faculty members also, how people are working and all to improve the quality and all. Then second, actually today is the Nagara Panchami, we may knowing actually. There is a lot of scientific, this one actually, that is like a science also. The science can be used as an enemy, also as a friend. Even Nagara Panchami also, that is the basic, the Hindu, this one actually. It is having a lot of beneficial effect, that snakes and all actually. That is why our ancestor made actually, that has to be celebrated as this one actually. Like that, our science also has to be as a friend rather than an enemy. That is one of the concepts we have to learn actually. Then second one actually, now we are making 4 days science festival actually. My submission to the university authority is there actually. One day we can integrate all the farm universities actually, those who are winning from the shortlisted candidates can be interacted every year. One university can organize the state level PG conference so that our students will be exposed more in broader this one. Even at a national level also we can plan in a, that can be discussed in the Vice Chancellor's meeting actually, so that we can give more opportunity for our students and all. Second one, now it is the era of startups and all. Anyway, third day we are having all the students who are providing the idea of startup and all actually. That also we can invite the lot of companies and also during that meetings actually, so that whatever the idea presented by our students, that can be commercialized, both the way it will be benefited and all, so that we can use this platform for the commercialization of technology, and also that will give more opportunity for the university to use our PG research for the benefit of the society and also industry. Okay, thank you one and all. Thank you. All the best for the organization.
Thank you, sir. May I now request Dr. T.K. Prabhakar Shetty, former Director of Research and present board member of University of Agricultural Sciences, Bangalore, to address the gathering.
Respected Vice Chancellor, Dr. Suresh, the keynote address speaker, Dr. Shishidhar, officers, and our other colleague, Honorable Board Member, Dr. Harish, and faculty members, students. See, research is not a new thing. It is searching again and again. So we should think of a new problem, and Dr. Shishidhar has highlighted systematically how this has to be done. My feeling is what happened in 16th century, the Malthusian theory, we all know in the first year itself we teach in agronomy, the food production and the population. So that is the main thing we started in the agriculture research, to see that food production is increased to meet the population which is going in a geometrical progression. But the situation has changed in the present past 20, 30 years. So our population is not increasing in a geometrical progression. So the things are changed, but the food production is really increasing, enhancing because of the research advantages, which was hardly 50 million tons in 1947 is now 315 million tons, the food. And we are self-sufficient now. Although we had some problem in 60s because of the famine and the research backup and all. So the research resulted in getting the Green Revolution, and then aftermath, we had a lot of problems also after the Green Revolution. Now the situation has changed, and we have to think of the newer areas in the present day situation, how to increase the production, how to double the farmer's income. All these things have to be taken up in a very systematic way because our resources are limited. Water is limited, our boundaries are fixed, and the land is same, and we have to go double the production or triple the production to increase or to meet the population demands. So the production scenario has to be improved by lot of biotechnological research and the systematic research which realizes the higher productivity, and all these things have to be done through either artificial intelligence or robotics. So many new areas have come, increasing the nutrient use efficiency, water use efficiency. All these things have to be planned in a systematic way to achieve the targets. So otherwise, in the future years, the population demand, the food will be really a problem. The population which is crossing 9 billion, the main sources of food comes from China, Brazil, and India. So we are the real food producers because of the good climate. We have 365 days we can grow food, whereas the other countries, European countries, America, they have got limitations. But our problem is really the problem of the land holdings. Holdings are getting diminished. The average per capita land holding is 1.5 hectares, which was about 10 years back. Now it is 1.31 hectares. With a small holding, how we have to increase the production, how we have to increase the crop yield, that is a real challenge for all of us. So we have to think with the limited per capita area, small holdings, how this has to be done. This has to be done through mechanization only. Mechanization is another area which has to be given a lot of importance, that to small equipments. All these things have to be thought over in the future years to see that we should become self-sustainable in the next decade. With this, few words. I thank the university for giving me the opportunity to share some of my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable inputs. Moving on, may I now request the President of the function, Dr. S.V. Suresha, Honorable Vice Chancellor, University of Agriculture, Bangalore, to deliver the presidential address.
Good morning, respected the chief guest of today's program, Dr. Shishidhar, Director NCBS, the members, Board of Management, the officers of the university, the faculty, and student friends. Indeed, it's a great pleasure to see a wonderful collection of your research in a common place and to understand what is that you have done in your 2 years or 3 years degree program. And at the same time, it is not just seeing the work of the students, but it also showcases the ability of the mentors who have made these students to work on these problems. The mentors plus the advisory committee. In addition to this, most of the time, the research, what we are doing, as Dr. Shishidhar said, it has got a lot of ethics is there, integrity is there in research. And also the way you have to formulate the hypothesis. And what is your role as a researcher in proving or disproving the hypothesis that you have made. Further, he also touched on how your publication should be and how it should be free from bias and how you have to carry out the work of research. Really, it was a great pleasure to hear starting from formulation of the problems till you are coming out with a problem output through your publications, so that giving the visibility of your research work to the entire world. But in addition to this, there is a lot of appreciation to Dr. Ganeshaya and his team, includes Dr. Belwadi, Dr. Umashankar, Dr. Chandrasekhar, who have introduced this pattern after starting of this agriculture university from 1967. For the first time, there was a change in PG research by bringing in the Science Week. But I'm not happy that it should not stop at this stage, but you need to think of making it a little bit vibrant and progressive in future years to come. So most of the time, the general complaint on the researchers by the policy makers is you have generated a lot of knowledge. The university is the place where we could able to get plenty of research work, but unfortunately not reaching the required client group. So when these people say that you are not reaching out your results to the client group, most of the times we have a less explanation that we can offer to them. But what I feel to this research, the Science Week, you can, each student, the Dean PGS and his team can work out on this proposal. Each student at the time of presentation of his work in the Science Week, he should give to whom these results are useful, who can make use of these results, either is it by an industrialist, or is it by a department, or is it by some other researchers who are in the same line of working. And if it is feasible or possible to invite those people, the stakeholders, to this Science Week and have an interaction with these students and find out whether this can also be further taken up in the advanced studies. So that may help to communicate the results that you are intent to give it through your publication in future immediately to the target group. If it is acceptable, fine. Or if there are suggestions for refinement, the next student can also think of doing it in the subsequent years. That also you can think of. And also, the publication of these papers, we have a serious reservation, and I am sorry, since it's an in-house meeting, there is nothing wrong in sharing this. the university got 11th rank. And unfortunately, we lost much of our score in research. We scored only 30%, 35%. That is 35 out of 100. And whereas in all other aspects, we could able to score more than 75. If it is just the research which has made us to come to the 11th position, and if there would have been a small increase in the research scores by maybe another by 10 to 15 scores, it would have been in 5th rank. And if it would have been increased by another 25 to 30 marks, you would have been in the 2nd or 1st position. We have so many researchers, and we have a lot of AICRP schemes, the externally funded schemes, but somewhere we are missing a track in respect of research. And most of the time, last time I asked one of my officers to do an analysis. Most of the research projects are handled by the teachers rather than the researchers who are in the research wing. So we have a lot of other lacunas also. What I feel, kindly have a look at this, because research you can't generate overnight, and the ranking system has changed. And it's not just for ranking. I'm just giving you an example. The ranking system will take previous 5-year scores. And now it is the responsibility of all of us, even if you improve in a single year. This year, if you improve, it doesn't mean that your ranking will increase. And why you need to increase the ranking? Because of the bringing out the visibility of the institutions at the global level. And most of the time, proudly we claim that we are 1 in 100 out of all the universities of the country, taking 90th position, but that there not be any complacence on it. We require to work more and good publications, and it is possible only with the good research work, quality research work, and it is possible only with making a good statistical application of the research data that you have generated. So kindly make use of this. Bring out the research mindset among the students in the first year itself. And DOE mentioned the 2 batch of students who have been awarded for their startup positions. But did we fail to ignite the minds of PG students for this? And there is not even a single mention that a PG student has represented this university, or he has presented his idea in the outside place, and he could able to raise the University of Agricultural Sciences in other forums. We have plenty of things. And last year I told Dr. Prakash, the Dean PGS, you said every year the student startups will be, the best ideas will be promoted. But during this Science Week, it is your responsibility to see that the previous year, the students who have been awarded or who have been identified as the best work, whether that has been taken up further. And if it requires the development of the prototypes, definitely I also told him there is nothing wrong. The university can extend a financial assistance up to 50,000 rupees to each of these students to develop the prototype, commercialize, and you showcase it in the outside. Because he said 320 students, 90 PhD students, that is the treasure of wealth for all of us. We have almost around 450 young minds working on this research, and at least 10% of it could be commercialized, or if it could bring out a new knowledge in the field of science, probably that will be an immense wealth to this science world. So kindly think of it. Make sure the quality research is handled in the university. Bring in outside people also into your research field, because that's why very recently we had an industry connect, industry and UAS connect, where we made it compulsory that the PG research should be designed after consultation with each of these stakeholders or the industry people. Let them suggest what are their requirements as far as the farming community is concerned. And if required, the funding will also come from the concerned industry, and the students will be offered to work in their laboratories, the advanced laboratories probably they might have set up. And we are preparing the student for research in future, making him to work with the private industry also. So kindly make sure that have an interaction with this PG research designing before, and interact with the people who are using these technologies for a period of years. And if possible, you also rope in into your advisory committees as a special invitee. And accordingly, I have asked DOE to suitably change the academic regulations for PG research. And wherever it is required, you can also bring in people from outside, though they are not officially recognized as PG researchers, that there be less bureaucratic approach and more of research mind. And let me wish you all the best for this year's Science Week. And if there are any technologies which you can promote in the subsequent years, make a note of it. After the Science Week, call them individually, have a discussion, and place them with the right people for further interaction also. So let me wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I now request Dr. Yanvi Prakash, Dean Agri, University of Agricultural Sciences, Bangalore, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good morning, everyone. It is my honor and privilege to propose vote of thanks on the inaugural day of Science Week 2023. At the outset, I need to thank Dr. L.S. Shashidhara, Professor and Director NCBS, for having graced this occasion and addressing us on the day of inaugural program of the Science Week. Sir, your talk on science, research, ethics and integrity really a food for thought for all of our students, including the faculty. On behalf of the University of Agricultural Sciences and on behalf of mine, I especially thank you for this particular event on which you are gracing the occasion. My heartfelt thanks also goes to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, S.V. Suresh sir, who is actually been involved in most of the new or innovative things in organizing the events. And is a special address on this occasion to give special emphasis on the research publications, quality publications is very valuable. I wish all my faculty members will definitely take note of it, since most of the research activities are being happening through our student fraternity. So on behalf of the university and on behalf of mine, a special thanks to you, sir, for your presidential address. And for the first time in the history of Science Week, since the beginning of Science Week, the program is witnessed by the member of Board of Management, Dr. T.K. Prabhakar Shetty and Dr. H.L. Harish sir, who are here for the first time, the distinguished members of the Board of Studies, Board of Management who are here. On behalf of all of you and on behalf of mine, I need to thank them, which shows their commitment, interest, and some of the suggestions which we need to give it as to be implemented at the policy levels of the university. So thanks to both of you, sir, on gracing this occasion. I owe my gratitude to Dr. K.C. Narayanaswamy and Dr. Basve Gowda, who will always be behind the organizing this event in a befitting way. So their instructions and suggestions for organizing this particular program are very valuable. I need to thank both of you once again, sir. My special thanks to Dr. S.C. Prakash, who is instrumental in organizing this event, and his team, which has supported him all along for organizing this event. Starting from planning and its execution is very, very important. And comprising of all the abstracts and oral presentations, PPTs, etc., are being involved. I need to thank Dr. S.C. Prakash on this regard. And I also thank all the officers of the university, Dr. Madhu Prasad, Pape Gowda, Dr. Mr. Pratibha, and all the other head of the departments, professors, faculty members, external experts who have all come from different universities and institutes, and the editors, and also PG coordinators who are all here, and mainly the chairman and members of different committees who are all actively involved in preparing the compendium and constituting different works in organizing this event. And my special thanks to all my PG students who will be presenting their posters and oral presentations. So once again, I need to thank each one of you on making this program a grand success. So since this is an inaugural program, if I am left over anybody to thank directly or indirectly, I request Banu Prakash need to thank them once again during the valedictory program for all having associated in this event. Thank you all once again. I wish all the very best for the Science Week 2023.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. There will be no question of the poster session at the poster venue. All the students who are displaying their posters are kindly requested to assemble there immediately. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. The high tea has been arranged outside the auditorium. Kindly join there.